and even the upcoming ones I have seen, though Marvel nor DC is capable of really doing this topic as I will do it. And as you can see, I will be going over no other than Nyx, the goddess of the night sky. And without further ado, let's dive in. This whole series starts off with the showing of the great might of the Greek pantheon. These magnificent stories that exist as metaphorical Platonic archetypes, beyond the universal cardinal hierarchies, beyond the local multiverse, just like every other pantheon of gods within Marvel. We then move on to Hercules, who has always been part of the Avengers but not a prime member of the Avengers we all know. He helps the police men to supposedly solve a case in this issue, but all we see is possibly our favorite guardian of the galaxy, known as Rocket. While Hercules clears up the misconceptions, we see this great darkness, and we are taken to also a longtime favorite of two great people, one a magician and one who never misses. We meet Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch, and while they talk and catch up on their distant friendship and past adventures, this darkness takes over again. We then see three other very exhilarating characters in which we should know that this comic is going to be beyond satisfaction, and they presumably are Dr. Adam Brashear, the Blue Marvel, Monica Rambeau, the Pure Light known as the Spectrum, and some would say Rambeau. Personally, I prefer Rambeau. And finally, the very downplayed, not so spoken of, Vision of the Avengers. Before we move on, this series focuses on four major things which you should have at the back of your mind. The first one is the fact that Vision was dying. The second is the darkness of the multiverse. The third is the character build up or development of Hercules. And the fourth is the concept of the House of Ideas. We see that Vision is dying for reasons we don't know per se, but we know he has the unlimited amount of containment of energy he can now take beyond comprehension, and as we move on we will find out. Next we see no other than Bruce Banner walking on the highway of a cross-country travel road while looking frustrated and extremely depressed for the fact that the Hulk is within him. And we know this great threat as the Immortal Hulk, which kind of links to this. And I will reread the previous comic of the Immortal Hulk, and I think there's a new one which I will get into as well for wonderful scaling as always. Now, as the Hulk comes out, we suddenly see this bright purple light, and behold, it is a portal with no other than the Voyager, or however you want to pronounce the name, in which is the daughter of the Grand Master. And as we remember the night falling, in which Voyager and Hulk as well as everyone else questions, but this takes place across the infinite local multiverse, which scales to high hyperversal and even far beyond the scopes of every conceptual transcendent hierarchy to a certain point. So pay attention as we get there and uncover the rest of the mystery. And as we move on, we see that Voyager goes to pick the Scarlet Witch, who herself had control over reality, and even her son Wiccan, in which I will make a video on him possibly soon, and also Hawkeye, in which the Hawk seems to have a problem with, but that's not really of our concern right now. Even Voyager, in the context of the dialogue as she gathers the team, is scared of Hawk turning against them, which anyone should be scared of, especially this Hawk, in which doesn't have the power of Kabbalah in him, but still had grown massively more powerful than even normal Hawk we know without a versatile consistent feats. And she hopes that only Hercules, who they go to pick next would be able to stop him, which is a probability and a heavy no, which you should or you would witness the vast strength between them as we move on. And as they journey, the first place they journey to is known as the city of the gods, in which I don't know why Hawkeye and Rocket should exist in an archetypal metaphorical platonic realm. Well, this is just one of those plot-induced stupidity, and we will get a few more in which I can use one for wank if I see fit to in a debate. At the same time, it may not actually be plot-induced stupidity because all of them actually seem to have gotten amped by the House of Ideas. And as we move on, we will see if it's induced or not. And I was saying, they went to the Greek pantheon within the city of the gods beyond corporeality and conceptuality, but everything was in tragic discord. As Hercules and the rest look around in sorrows while consoling Hercules for the loss of the great gods and his family, Hercules shouts at Voyager as she saw all these firsthand, but she had no time to have a discussion with just him and his rationality as she needed reinforcements for the upcoming disasters. Like I said earlier, she's the daughter of the Grandmaster, in which they are native to the far shore, supposedly a place beyond time and space, beyond life, beyond death, beyond rebirth, and beyond the realms of false platonic living concepts like nightmare. Hercules talks to Athena before her final words, and she tells us the queen of the great darkness is the cause of this, which her name must never be said. And she says that they are true myths, but Hercules is in of their true kind. And true myths created by the collective unconscious must surely end. And yes, most of these things are created by the collective unconscious in Marvel, all the way from the quarry of creations, which is a topic for another day, maybe when I'm scaling the Celestials, which I will do in the future. So make sure you subscribe, turn on post notification if you enjoy or like what I do here, and let's continue. And as Hercules embraces Athena's corpse, the witch of realities makes a grave mistake to speak on the name of the goddess Nyx, which must never be spoken anywhere across reality. In fact, her tales are never told and are even forbidden from the mouths of beings far higher than gods, which we will see possibly as we move on. And within the blink of an eye, the darkness comes for them while blinding Scarlet Witch at the same time and says that she shouldn't have spoken upon her name. And at the first shore, we see this dialogue kind of thing answering the plot-induced stupidity part of why mortals such as Hawkeye get to fight gods and god killers, and as I can understand, it is just based on love, hope, and pure will as a story conceptual setting. Like if you have heard of something like the story of Superman, the sync wave, the story of Doom, which you would see in my God of Stories Loki video. And it's this kind of thing as well, plot-induced stupidity or plot armor, basically converted into a form of narrative to build around the story, to amp characters to do things they're usually not supposed to do. It's kind of giving this game setting because most of them might be relative at that point, except from the main threats and the main antagonist or protagonist. And you have to pay attention to the narrative and dialogue, as the purple dialogue belongs to Hawkeye, but plot-induced stupidity is plot-induced stupidity as long as I am concerned, excluding mortals that are actually stronger than these concepts. All the way from the far shore, Nick's presence was tearing through the Marvel multiverse. Below the far shore and even the far shore, which you can check my Marvel cosmology videos for this. And I also want to announce I will be making a part 3 and 4 of Marvel and DC cosmologies. The honest truth about the cosmologies is that yes, I have done a pretty good job. I've read a lot of comics. No, I might still be making more cosmology videos as we go on, but this part 3 and part 4 is just basically what will solidify it so much better on a very good, wonderful scale. Any other cosmology video you see after part 3 and part 4 would just be extra realms to each tier that I didn't mention of, because I have a goal of reading all 32,000 Marvel comics and as much comics as I can read for DC. I want to read all. And let's go back to the video. Now let's get a brief up on the backstory of Nyx. Nyx is known as the goddess of the night sky or the dark skies, both in the real mythology and Marvel mythos. Now Zeus chased Nyx away and locked her up by bringing in the light of creation. This is weird, but anyone who can't understand concepts of writing and constructive narratives would just say the scaling here is bad for the fact that Zeus could even defeat her, but Nyx existed across all of Marvel as the concept of darkness, like eternity, is the multiverse. But the light of creation also came across each plane naturally by God, in which Zeus was the light for the Greek pantheon, and Nyx is a Greek goddess. So she lived in the city of the gods as an avatar, while her darkness existed in shards across existence. Though they were inside her, just they reflected across existence as a true form, which consisted of the local multiverse, the outer layers, the high outer layers, and the boundless tier, in which this form you see as stated, which you will see as we move on, and even without direct statements by narrative, it shows that her powers are broken down. Nyx lived as an avatar with a corporeal form in the city of the gods, and Zeus sent her away and reduced her darkness, but knows that true Nyx still can't take a physical form at full power as a true form, but while she still covers everything in pure darkness, which would be seen as we move. Voyager says that her children have gone to retrieve her shards, in which to know how overpowered she is. We will quickly see how strong her children are, which they are just yet less than infinitesimals of what she holds. But if you are new, you know we scale at the end while we go through the narratives for now. How about we see the direct description of Nyx and her children, which I'm not going to read that whole thing. That would just take a lot of time. The scan is here, you can screenshot it and read it later. Before Voyager got taken away by Nyx, she sent the Avengers to different dimensions in which Rocket, Hawkeye, and Hulk were sent to the realm of nightmare, which lies transfinitely beyond the realm of the gods as an infinitely into high universal plane, while the rest were sent to omnipotent city, in which, as we can see, is in the middle of eternal darkness, as Hercules says that it is myth and not science. All things in creation are linked to it, and the reason why that is because it is called the nexus of the gods across existence of every plane, and yet the hall of all-knowing is yet but a facet of the one above all others, or one above all, which is actually just an avatar of true the one above all, but knows that the hall of all-knowing has many doors of infinity, which is in every plane as we see in all these scans. Just try to understand them. The halls of all knowing consist of all narratives of every being of each tier, which is linked to the omnipotent city, which is a facet known as the house of ideas, in which this is a facet compared to the house of ideas, which this is shown in Loki 2019 comics after Loki Agent of Asgard, which you will be getting the video very soon. Probably next tomorrow, probably next week, but definitely before this month ends, which the month is almost ending. Many might not understand, so let me put it like this. The halls of all knowing, which these gods think it is, but it is just a worse than an infinitesimal of the true halls of knowing, which the halls is an infinitesimal of the omnipotent city, as a nexus of the gods, as stated by Hercules. And yes, the omnipotent city is yet a facet, or another infinitesimal, of the house of ideas, in which the dark energy you people see around it is kind of the cause, is Nick's energy actually, which the omnipotent city, which holds infinities upon infinities leading to all parts of creation, literally below the house of ideas. This place keeps shining of all knowledge in creation, which Nick's current power cannot take out. The omnipotent city we see here might be one of many, but as we move on, we will find out. Now, back to Nightmare. As quickly as possible, Nightmare got so weak that he can't keep people in nightmare dreams anymore, because Hypnos, the god of dreams, controls those who sleep to do his bidding, including gods of course, and dreams are metaphors, ideas, and this is consistent, as I said earlier, that Nightmare and all these false platonic living concepts are infinitely into high autoversal. Nyx is powerful enough to birth children of different strength levels, which Hypnos took over the dream of everyone to gain strength, and Nightmare feeds on nightmares, which includes gods as he transcends them, as well as other splinter lords, which have concepts they embody and feed on as their existential rights to be powerful, and they can even get stronger than usual depending on what those naturally below them do with these concepts. But Marvel's hierarchy has made it so that you can't just existentially transcend each tier despite you going there or fighting there. If needed, the beings of that tier can actually one-shot you if they see fit to, which has happened a lot of times. And in the halls of all knowing, we see that they are very scared of Nyx getting the rest of her power, in which Nyx actually implanted her sight to that of the Scarlet Witch and could see all their locations and the shards hidden with the Guardian of Knowledge. Nyx twins, as explained earlier in that scan I told you people to read, are very dangerous as concepts of their own right, which I will just place the scans of the fights so we move on as they got violated. We got more showings of the goddess downfall, as I explained earlier, as the part of Nyx that lived in the god plane as an avatar who chose to give birth to children, some beyond gods and some on the level of gods. And note that Zeus isn't just limited to the level of the gods, but more like a rival of Odin. But Odin is stronger. Nyx had her shards scattered by Zeus, which is the concept of darkness, and existed as an avatar embodying the shards of her darkness, because as creation grew, her power stood short. So they was replaced in shards that if one breaks, it can literally end a whole high autoversal hierarchy, which kind of happened at the ending, which we will see. And this is the same thing like nightmare. These people are concepts of different scale, which their concepts can be confusing. She was then locked up and thrown into a dark prison with her children, but while her remaining bodies were sent around sealed. And here more and her most powerful concept was birthed from both nightmares, misery, and hatred. And as the lights went down, for some reason, this had to do with Earth, and this is just based off of creation myth. As a concept of light goes, humans think of darkness as that's what shows up. Then she rose with her children. While her children and her battled Hercules team, in which Wanda and Spectrum fuse for better sight and firepower of magic and brighter lights. They create room for escape with the shards while her children get badly damaged because there is no darkness and they got massively weaker to the point and of almost dying, in which vision could damage one severely. And as Wanda escapes by Voyager opening a portal, Nyx calls out for Hypnos, but Hawk and the other team had killed him with the help of a nightmare. And Nyx gets angry, then literally one-shots Vision and Hercules out of existence, in which we are going to skip this boring Conan arc that didn't really add anything to the story. Hawk then takes in one shard of Nyx's power, not a whole shard, like a little part that just broke from it. While Nyx, on the other hand, goes for the one with Hercules' team. And we see something Monica Rambeau never did at full extent, which is basically go full power and used all forms of radiation on the spectrum known, and even being as bright and as hot as the sun, which isn't impressive compared to what she could do in Ultimate, in which all this while they thought that the sun was exactly making Nyx weak, which it did. And there's something people don't actually know about Earth and its solar system in Marvel. But Earth in Marvel is actually not your normal planet. Multiverse 616 in Marvel isn't your normal multiverse like the others. Planet Earth alone is actually varies massively in power, which I will address in the third or fourth cosmology video. The Son of Earth actually acted like a kryptonite to weaken her, even worse than what the light of high outer gods can. But yet, Nyx blocks such an attack and makes use of 616 Moon to reflect it upon her power. At that time and now, for those who will use the 1,000 star statements as lowball, like people use the 10 billion won for Cosmic Armor Superman, that's just a hyperbolic statement, just saying that there are a lot of stars when we know the night of Nyx and even weaker beings below outer are infinities of several structures. And we even see that Spectrum gets slammed away and says she had fought all sorts of things, but Nyx is just beyond. And for the earlier sub statements for Monica, it might even be a lot higher than her high autoversal feats. After Nyx gets the next shot, her power goes to 75%, remaining the one with Hawk, which is just a little shot, and she got so powerful she could view the entire conceptual space of the House of Ideas while simultaneously in the high outer layer fighting the Avengers. And Monica, who has been to the neutral zone, asked her what she saw because Monica couldn't, of course, see nor comprehend it. And Nyx told her nothing and she's only human, but with god level powers, and Nyx is powerful to make her feel still like a human despite such power. Nyx basically became omnipresent on a beyond transfinite scale to overview the House of Ideas from outside, in which until the end you would know how impressive that is. And Nyx goes to the planet Euphoria, where Hulk hit the last shot so powerful it could end all of creation. And I did mention at the start that each shard had its existential threat, in which this last one is extremely powerful. Hulk pulls the best feats so far, which, like I said earlier, we will know if he can't fight her, though he was amped by a portion of her power. Plus, his immortal Hulk strength, he fleet her away, and she got pissed, so pissed she one-shot Hulk and just ripped the entire gamma energy from him, separating Hulk from Banner, along with that power of hers. And the House of Ideas came to her again, and everything turns dark finally. The planet itself who held it questioned everyone on what they desire, as you can see, in which Nick starts with the fight again and gets shot in the eye by Hawkeye, which is plotting due stupidity, but might not be, which, like I said earlier, they somewhat actually got amped by the House of Ideas. Nyx gets the final part and got so powerful that she just transcends to the realm exactly of the House of Ideas, which is the real world. And she was going to reshape the universe, the Marvel universe. But at the same time, the Avengers had no hope of going there, but this Euphoria planet is basically so powerful it grants any heart's desire, making the Avengers go to the real world in the comics. And I wouldn't say this planet did that, right? Because the House of Ideas kept on interfering and made way for these people to actually get to the real world via the planet Euphoria, which is kind of one of the highest rooms in Marvel. Even as of now, I'm reading this, at least below Oblivion, I guess, and a few other realms. And we see that the light of the House of Ideas transcends her darkness to the real world, and humans there couldn't even see her, but only hear sounds, and her darkness had already covered all of Marvel. In which she makes her way into the House of Ideas, and its presence rejected everyone else, despite them transcending by just being there. They were burning out of existence by just small light of creation, which is infinite. These people already transcended, and Monica then gave her light to Vision plus all his powers left, which they still needed to be invulnerable, and got amped by the House of Ideas. And they passed through with speed faster than all of creation in Marvel to save every story in Marvel, becoming the god of stories, Vision. Vision then gets fixed up as he is the god of stories, which he unconsciously remade himself by drawing himself back to reality. He speaks to Nyx, and this is the house above all others, which definitely is the highest avatar of the one above all, which is so powerful that it is introduced as the creation of not just Stan Lee, but also Jack Kirby. The house is them, it is their work. Humanity basically is the concept behind Marvel, in which Stan Lee and Jack Kirby of a higher incomprehensible existence than this is what created the House of Ideas, which is pretty obvious, and they did say it themselves for reasons I don't know why their minds should be aware of such. Nyx wants to rewrite. Oh, and the reason why their minds are aware of such is because they got amped by the House of Ideas, but not on the level of Vision. You can literally say Hawkeye is literally on the level of God of Stories Loki. Nyx wants to rewrite creation, but as a god of creation of stories, Vision basically starts telling stories of telling stories of his saved data, of infinite stories and heroes which they start popping from infinite panels or comics, beating her, making them on the boundless tier, but infinite of them to all best nicks, while the light of creation burns her as the concept of a story ending, making her die as fiction, making her a story into the panels. She literally got fixed into a panel and got burnt by the fire of creation. Now, how powerful is Nyx? We know with only one part of her power, she scaled above every god, nightmare tiers, and for sure, which is kinda multi-eternity level. And note, I will be doing a Never Queen and multi-eternity video soon, so make sure you do subscribe. And she could already cover the omnipotent city later on to total darkness, and know that this was the one she had, and this was one of her mid-range shards which she had before, and this was her before she even took any other shard. By the first, which she took from the guardians of knowledge, just made her massively stronger, at least double what she was. But the second, in which she took from Scarlet Witch, made her see the House of Ideas and become omnipresent. She basically became boundless.